Welcome to the 100 Club podcast. I'm your co-host, Michael Moy. Alongside with me is Corey Mitchell. And man, we have an awesome conversation ahead of you. We have on with us Christy Van Der Westhuizen. She is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at MBK Senior Living. And we're going to be talking about a number of different things. But first and foremost, I wanted just to introduce you. Christy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Awesome. So first, I would love to introduce my sweet dog laying on the floor. That's a 13-year-old Cocker Spaniel, Zuma. He's probably going to be sleeping this entire time. So I just wanted everyone to know that is Zuma in the background. He's good. He's a great senior dog who will probably sleep through the whole time. So my name is Christy. And my last name is probably one of the longest in the senior living industry. It's Van Der Westhuizen. 15 years ago, I married a wonderful South African man and took his entire last name without hesitation. So that's why I have that long last name, Van Der Westhuizen. So a couple things about me. I've been in the industry for 13 years. And prior to that, I sold title insurance and real estate, and did sales that way for about 5 years. So all in all, 18 years of sales and marketing experience. I know I look in my early 20s, and if you're thinking that, thank you. It's not true. But
we all were thinking. Yeah.
Bless your heart. I'm so glad if you were, but no, it's not true. But felt very, very strongly that I wanted to get in more of a sales role. And I just was not fulfilled in title insurance. It was a great industry. I loved real estate. I loved meeting with realtors and talking about title insurance, but that didn't fill my love cup at all. Mm-hmm. The relationships did, but the product didn't. And I knew that I wanted to make a difference in this world with my career. So that's how I stumbled across senior living. Is my grandma was diagnosed with dementia. Again, this was 13 and a half years ago. And my parents were powers of attorney for her. And they were total overachievers, like their daughter, went to 12 places in 2 days, if you can believe that. It's true. Wow. Like they had a stack of brochures and spread out on the kitchen table. But one thing they did say was, we met 12 people that remind us of you, Christy. You should probably look into senior living, because I know that you're feeling a little empty selling title insurance. So that, long story short, that's how I got involved in this industry, was because of my grandma. And we found an amazing memory care community for her to live for a few more years of her life. And then in addition, my other grandma on my mom's side currently lives at an assisted living community right now. So, and she's a spry, almost 93-year-old. And so I've kind of had like the both experiences of senior living with my grandparents. And so that's brought me a lot more, I would say, intimately involved in senior living, other than just making it a career that I didn't have personal experience with.
Yeah, no, that's great background. And I'm curious, you said something along the lines. So your parents kind of gave you the tap and was like, hey, I think that you'd be a good fit. Walk me through why they thought that you would be a good fit.
I think they met people who were very interested in their story. I have my degree in broadcast journalism. So I'm a trained curiosity professional.
Yeah, I like
it's
that.
Like everything is why. So you do it this way. Why do you do it that way? Tell me more about that. Why? I'm also naturally curious too. So I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons why they thought I should look into this industry, was they met people who were just asking more and more questions. And I unfortunately think that can be a lost art in sales, is going, rather than asking questions and finding out what's so important to the prospect and their family. I think we sometimes go on autopilot, and myself included on that, is feature dumping and saying, okay, Michael, don't you want to move here because of this, and this? It's like, man, I don't even know you yet. So how would I even recommend a place to live and to be vibrant and to enjoy life if I don't even know what enjoying life means to you?
Yeah, totally makes sense. And like, I think the natural curiosity is a lost art, because I think maybe because of a number of things where kind of we're living in more of a transactional kind of day and age, to where we feel the need to work against competition, and we need to make sure that we are the first ones to kind of share value. But like, I guess that's a good segue into maybe your selection process of finding the best team members. Is that one of like the characteristics during an interview process for you, saying like, hey, this person was just asking so many good questions, like was very curious about our business? Kind of walk through that selection process and give maybe a good template for other people to follow, especially as we're talking about it being very hard to generate and attract and retain talent during these times. And I think the better that we can do in finding like the right people gives us the best opportunity to win and have stronger retention. So just tell me a little bit more about that.
So a long time ago, someone told me, people, all things being equal, people like doing business with friends. All things being unequal, people like doing business with friends. So be friendly. So that's one of our core characteristics of what we look for, is people that you want. So in the interview process, it's getting to know one another. It's almost like, I don't want to say this, but it's almost like a first date. It's like, you tell me a little bit about you, I'll tell you a little bit about me, and let's see if we can work together. So being friendly, being courteous, being on time, all of those things, that also can be a lost art. But I feel like it's more, yes, it's us getting to know the potential director of sales, but I want them to be curious about us as a company and what our philosophy is and what our culture is. So if they come in with, a resume and they like say, well, I've done this, and this, don't you want to hire me? I know that's an extreme example, but we probably won't hire that person, because we want someone who at their core believes in doing good. And that's one of our cultures at MBK is Yoi Shigoto. And Yoi Shigoto, directly translated from Japanese. If you didn't know, we're a Tokyo-based company, and our parent company is Mitsui. So we have very, very deep Japanese roots of honor, taking care of our elders, respecting our elders. So part of our philosophy is Yoi Shigoto, and it's doing the good work. And that doesn't mean just doing the good work inside the four walls of our senior living community. That is extended beyond the four walls. And so if someone doesn't have that innate, I want to do good, I want to do the good work, they might not be the right fit for our company too. I also love hunter-gatherers. So people that, rather than saying, oh, I don't have enough leads this week, it's like, I don't have enough leads, but I'm going to go out and get them. So it's this hunter-gatherer mentality that I think is so important in our industry too. So it's finding people who have the heart for connection, for relationships, for being a friend to anyone who calls and walks in the door, to someone who has that hunter-gatherer mentality of, I'm gonna make it happen. So I'm not going to sit back and complain. I'm going to say, wow, this is an opportunity, and this is how I'm going to fix it. Yeah. So it's coming to the table with solutions instead of just problems.
Yeah, I love that. So we always said hunter with a heart. So it was 80% hunter and 20% heart.
Yeah.
And I think in today's senior living industry, it may be, even a little bit different, because you need real salespeople in these positions now, when you first started, it was a little bit more of, more walk-ins were happening and it was easier to get move-ins per se. There wasn't as many competitors in the area. And now it's so competitive that where companies are kind of growing, the ones that are leaving other companies are the ones who are actually hiring and training salespeople in actual sales skills. Like you talked about, a hunter, someone who will actually go get these leads and not just sit and wait for them to come. I think that's been a big change as well. So I'm curious, I want to kind of hear your journey, how you got to become VP of sales, if that was your goal when you first started, and kind of just that path of you starting as community relations director, you being in that seat, if you ever got a community to 100%, and then kind of just your journey and path of how you became successful and became VP of sales for MBK.
Yeah. So I was very lucky. I worked at an amazing senior living community starting in 2009 as a director of sales. And at that point, I think we called them community marketing directors community marketing directors. And that was for Integral Senior Living. Integral Senior Living is a mostly third-party management company based out of Carlsbad, California, but they manage communities all around the country. So that was who hired me. And then I was there for about 2.5 years. And one of my goals of working at, and it was called Whittier Place, and I believe it's still called Whittier Place if you want to Google it. But we had transformed a hallway of assisted living into a hallway of memory care. And so I was hired to help fill the new memory care hallway or wing, if you will. Yeah. And at that point, I didn't really know a ton about memory care. All I knew is my grandma had just moved into a memory care community. Now, what that meant and what programs and what support the families would get, I probably was very clueless when it came to, okay, how do you connect with someone who is usually in the midst of a crisis with a loved one? Mm-hmm. And how do you move that sale forward with heart, but also with urgency and with an emphasis on safety for the potential resident? And that was a giant learning curve, because I think I understood how to sell and connect with folks regarding assisted living or independent living, but a memory care prospect and family is just usually going through a really challenging journey. So that was my job at the very beginning was, hey, you're now a community marketing director, and oh, by the way, we have 20 memory care apartments that we need to get wonderful residents in. So that was really fun, though, to learn more about just what memory care meant, and what outreach and what professional relationships do I need to develop in order to get those referrals to come our way. Yeah. So that was really fun, but a giant learning curve, of course. So I was there for about 2.5 years. Now, I don't know, it was probably in my first few months of senior living in general. And my regional, John Murphy, and he's still in the industry. I think he's a VP of sales out there. he asked me what my goal was. Like, what are my career plans? And I said, well, I kind of want to keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I see a regional position in your future. And I'm like, okay, well, how is that even possible? Because I just started, I'm like mid-20s. I just started. I fell in love with the industry, but what it meant to be a regional, I was like, oh, that is like way far away.
Mm-hmm.
So he said to me, I believe you could be a regional for our company. And little did I know he had a crystal ball, because that's exactly what happened. But he said, you need to replicate your success somewhere else, like at another community. You can't just be a one-hit wonder. You can't go to a community, fill it up, call it a day, and then be a regional. He's like, you have to be able to go somewhere else and do the same thing. So 2.5 years later, an opportunity came to move. So my husband and I moved to a community, or moved very close to a community in the Palm Springs area. And it was a very severely challenged community, severely.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, whoo, I got my work cut out for me. If this doesn't prove that I'm ready for a regional position, I don't know what is. And it took a little while to get everything smooth, but we were just getting amazing referrals, amazing move-ins left and right. And I was there for about 2.5 years also, when a position opened up to be a regional within a girl senior living. But it meant that my husband and I would have to move out of state. And we said, absolutely, let's go to Texas. So I was hired as a regional, moved to Texas, and was kind of like a new development specialist, because we were opening up new communities all around the Midwest. But little did we know that I was pregnant at the time. So we had our daughter in Texas, and then an opportunity with ISL came to move back to California. So they asked if I would ever consider moving back, and the answer was a resounding yes, because all of our family and friends are in California. And it's hard to raise a baby when you know no one in your area. So that's how I kind of got back to California, and I was still a regional with ISL, and that was about five years total. And an opportunity came around to become a VP of sales and marketing. And MBK, I actually didn't know a ton about. I knew people who had worked there in the past and had amazing things to say, but I didn't really know. But I knew Jeff Fisher, the president, just very casually at a couple of senior living events. And but anyway, long story short, or long story longer, actually, we got together and he said, hey, we're looking for a VP of sales and marketing. You've never been one before. So what would your first 30, 60, 90 days look like?
Mm-hmm.
What would your first year look like? What is your fingerprint on the organization going to look like? So it forced me to put together my action plan to, like, what does being a first-time VP look like? What do you look at? What do you analyze? And I put together this whole game plan and presented it. And a couple weeks later, I was hired. Hallelujah. And it's been 3 years, almost to the day, actually, that I've been with MBK. But I still look back at that document, and it's so cool to go like, check, 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 check. Yep. Check. It is so cool. Yeah. And I'm doing a lot of kind of reflection, just because when you have a work anniversary or a relationship anniversary, you kind of automatically look back at all the things that you've accomplished or challenges you've overcome. And so I started looking back at my emails. I keep every email. And I'm looking at day 1 emails from 3 years ago, day 2, day 3. I'm kind of just going, I don't know, just looking back at everything we've accomplished as a team, because it is an absolute team. I stand firmly when I say I have the best team in the industry. But it's so cool to look back at the things that we were struggling with 3 years ago. It's not even a thought anymore. It is nailed down. Or the things that we really wanted to do as a team, we've accomplished that. Mm-hmm. So it's just cool to kind of look back and see the just the progress. We love being innovative, and that is something that Jeff, our president, really appreciates. So when we come up with a harebrained idea, like, hey, we want to try this random whatever because Starbucks did it or Hilton did it, 9 times out of 10, he'll say, yeah, let's try it. So we get a lot of inspiration, not in our own industry.
I love that.
Yeah, we like to look at other industries. I'm sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, that's great.
There's like 3 pieces of my career. Yeah. And I feel like each piece was absolutely critical to achieve some of the successes that MBK and my team has accomplished.
Yeah. I honestly don't even know how to ask an appropriate question after that, because it was so good. Like that story is so, and I'm serious, like it's so impactful, because I think a lot of people need to have some type of blueprint to, like, there's so many people in sales and marketing shoes, just the directors, that want to get in your position. So I think that this gives them a good outline. And like, honestly, we could probably have a separate podcast for all like the key talking points that you kind of alluded to. You're talking about innovation, you're talking about culture, you're talking about levels of trust, willingness to be open-minded. So like, I'm going to back up pretty far, and then I'm going to go to the conversation, and I apologize, I should know this and be a better podcaster or whatever, but who was the person that you were talking to that had that initial inclination that's like, I feel like you're going to be a regional? Who was that?
John Murphy.
John Murphy. So kind of like, tell me, like, what was that conversation like? And then when you were digging in, because you were naturally curious, like why me type of things, like what were the things, were the things that he was seeing the same as what your parents were seeing? And did you even have that belief?
I definitely did not have the belief at all, because I was new in the industry.
Yeah.
I didn't even, and I didn't even know like what being a regional meant. I actually, shame on me. I was like, ooh, this job looks kind of easy. Like, as a regional, you coach and you support the teams in being successful. As a VP, my job is to help the regionals, who then help the community teams. And I help the community teams as well. But we don't do any selling. There's no exchange of community fees. There's no sign here on the dotted line. There's none of that. We don't sell. Mm-hmm. We help community teams sell. And so again, naive Christy, shame on me. I was like, oh, you don't have to sell anymore. I can help you sell. So I think that was a really big eye-opening moment when and the regionals who I knew, they made it look so easy. I think that's what I mean by that, is that they made it look easy. They knew their communities. They knew how to help us. Their coaching was seamless. So I was like, oh, I could do that. I want to do that. And little did I know, there is this middle layer, and specific to third-party management, where the regional team is the direct communicator with an ownership group. Mm-hmm. So that's where I feel like I grew some major teeth when I was with ISL as a regional team. I learned how to communicate with owners. And by the way, I probably had 7 ownership groups at a time, and they all want things differently, or they all want to feel like they're the number one priority, which I totally get. So I had to learn how to communicate with the community teams and then communicate that up to the ownership group. But then I'm held absolutely accountable to the team's success. So that's like the hidden key that I did not know, that when I was at a community, as a director of sales, I didn't see the pressure that the regionals were under. They just, they're like ducks, like everything just like rolls off their back, but you don't see their little feet. Okay, that's what a regional does. And I didn't see that until I was in it. And I was like, oh, just because you could be successful as a director level or a director of sales at the community level does not mean you're automatically going to know everything there is to know to be a successful regional. There has to be this ability to coach and mentor and lead a team without doing the job for them. That was really challenging for me, because it's like, how do you have to teach someone how to do their job, but at the end of the day, you have to walk away and let them choose to be successful or not.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard lesson, because every fiber in my being wanted to swoop in and rescue. And you can't do that when you have 12, 13 communities. You have to let community teams own it themselves.
Do you feel like that is kind of a gap between like when people move from sales directors to regionals? Do you feel like, because this is across the board in any industry, you move from I'm boots on the ground, I'm selling it, to now I'm actually having to coach it, have to be a little bit more hands off.
Yeah.
It's easier to step in and be like, I can help you with this,
right,
make this cost. Like, do you think that's a hurdle, or do you think that's a challenge that regionals get into pretty quickly? And what would your piece of advice be like to talk to a new regional to help them just get acclimated to the new role?
Yeah, I do think that first-time regional directors of sales really do struggle with that transition from, okay, I'm doing the job, to now I'm coaching the job. I think that, that's an absolute challenge. And it usually takes a couple misses to find your groove. One thing that I think is really important to note also from a regional perspective, and hopefully my team knows I'll say this, but it's the ability to diagnose quickly. It's ability to walk into a building and start seeing, okay, so if we're not at high occupancy, what's the reason? Okay, so, and it's not diagnosing to point fingers. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. It's diagnosing so we could put together a comprehensive action plan in order to solve what challenges. But it's the ability to diagnose, its ability to put together a comprehensive game plan. Okay, but the key, in my humble opinion, is the ability to follow up on that game plan. Because it's really easy to brainstorm, and I'm totally guilty of this, of like, oh, we could do this and this and this and this, and that'll be great. Okay, are there dates of like when that thing needs to be accomplished? Okay, if not, let's put a date down so we know when it's happening, and then we can follow up afterwards. And that's holding people accountable is also a really big challenge, I would say, for first-time direct regionals, because they've only had to hold themselves accountable as a community director of sales. Now you're needing to hold 10 to 12 to 15 people accountable. So do they know the expectations? If they don't, you need to make sure that you let them know what you expect, and that you're holding them to those expectations. And I think we do a really big disservice to ourselves if we're not upfront with the expectations from day one of the interview process.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, these are our expectations for you as a director of sales. You need to do this, 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 and this in order to be successful with our company. Can you do that?
Yeah. So it's curious. You said you go in and you diagnose, say there's a community that's not where they should be occupancy wise, and you go in and you diagnose what is going on at the community level. Is it all sales and marketing focused, or is there operations involved in that as a whole? And how do you kind of go over all of that and kind of come up with a plan to move forward? What does that look like?
Oh yeah, it's definitely not just sales and marketing focused. It's not that at all. It really is a comprehensive plan, and look at, okay, what are our biggest obstacles? What are my favorite question to diagnose is, what's the word on the street about your community? I love that question because because your nurse will tell you something, your ED will tell you something, your director of sales. I mean, everyone will tell you something, and you kind of put those pieces together and go, okay, so word on the street is we aren't able to take care of high acuity residents, but that's not the case. So what's our action plan to make sure people know that, yes, we can absolutely take care of folks that need extra levels of care? Do we need to have the social workers and case managers as part of whether it's a Zoom webinar or in person, if your county allows it? Do we need a collateral piece? Do we need an e-blast? What do we need? And then we talk about the next word on the street. And then, okay, what's our action plan with that? But it's absolutely not just sales and marketing. We're really lucky at MBK. We have a kind of a one-to-one partnership. So we have a regional salesperson and a regional ops person. There's not a lot of like, this person works with this person who works with this person. It's like a one-to-one. So a lot of times we'll do joint visits together. And so the sales and the operations are hearing the same thing. They can also be more collaborative with what the action plan is for the team.
Gotcha.
So
with MBK, are you guys, where are you guys trying to be at in the market? Are you, like, as far as pricing goes, are you top of the market? Are you middle market? Where are you guys trying to be at?
We're not top, but we're almost top.
Okay. And you guys levels of care, or do you all inclusive?
Mostly levels of care. It depends on the market. Some of our markets, for example, memory care, every single community is all inclusive in the market. So that'll dictate the way we price in that market. But for the most part, we're levels of care. So it's rent plus levels of care. Yeah. And kind of where we want to be. So we're at 34 communities right now, just on the Western United States. Our goal in the next 5 or 10 years is to be 100 communities. Yeah. And at that point, I imagine our footprint will definitely increase to not just the Western United States.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that's going to come from a decent amount of acquisitions plus new builds. What is there?
You know what's crazy is we don't do any new development. So we just acquire communities. Yeah.
Is there a reason?
I keep like prodding. Okay. Because I have a lot of new development experience, and so does our entire team. But at this point, we're happy with doing acquisitions of communities that have already been built and might need a little TLC. So we come in and bring the MBK secret sauce. And
I would be curious to know, like, what are you telling people when you do acquire kind of maybe a not the prettiest one in the shed? You're more kind of talking value. Like,
yeah.
How are you coaching up the sales team when that's their role now?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a really interesting question. So it kind of goes back on something that I learned with working with ISL for 10 years. And that is, love everything that your community is and that it isn't. And so it's finding your community's why. And honestly, if we're selling the 4 walls of our communities, like, oh, look how pretty this is, and look at how pretty that is, and we're doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong. Yeah. So focusing on those intangible things is is how you connect with people and how you move the sale forward. So it might be a beaten up community. And of course, we're going to come in and obviously people want to live in a nice community that smells good and looks good. Of course, we're going to bring that MBK touch to the community. But it's, what are we truly selling?
Yeah.
And it's lifestyle, it's quality of life, it's care, it's, again, it's peace of mind. That's what we sell and connect to. All the other stuff is like gravy.
Yeah.
We also, but I will be honest, we also only acquire Class A communities. So we're not going into communities that are, you know, like broken down.
Yeah.
But I have done that in the past.
Yeah.
But truly, we want to bring a value add to a community that's already pretty dang good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I mean, we worked at a pretty nice one here in Roswell, and honestly, that's one way that I really like to start off the tour, is just be able to say, like, you know, take it in, you know, kind of really look at all the surroundings and like be thankful that it is a great aesthetically pleasing place. Cause I think that if it looks good, you feel good type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Know that it's this isn't what it is going to be, you know, the aesthetics will fade, but the genuine, the dignity, the honor, the things that you're talking about, the culture is what's going to eventually surface and what's the most important, because we're ultimately talking about maybe the most important decision that an older adult can make in their lifetime. And so we were talking about this a little bit, and this is kind of throwing like you may be for a loop here. So, you know, what makes MBK such a trustworthy place to where I would feel comfortable putting my mom in that community, and vice versa for you? Like, what makes it to where, like, without a shadow of a doubt, I know that they're going to be taken care of and loved on. It could be talking culture or anything, but just take that however you want.
You should feel it the second you walk in the door. You are our priority. That's end of story.
Yeah.
Like
that.
We, again, talking about Yoi Shigoto, that is in every decision that we make as a company. Yeah. Is it the right decision? And I think you feel that the second you walk in the door.
I agree.
There's nothing that replaces that. I know we're in a virtual world now, and it's good to do virtual tours on FaceTime and Google Duo and Zoom, whatever. You don't exactly get the feeling of like walking in the doors and going, okay, they've got my back. All right.
Yeah.
And that's a challenging place to be right now, because I kind of feel like we're going back a little bit to April 2020 and May 2020 of we're starting to have COVID cases pop up, and local health departments shutting certain things down. And so it does feel a little bit tumultuous right now. So my role truly is to keep our sales team motivated, cared for, heard. And if there's something that we can do from a home office perspective to make their job easier or better or more fulfilling, we want to know. Yeah. Because again, I'm just a cost to the company. The community teams are who make it happen. So I want to make sure that like I prove my worth by helping them be successful.
Yeah, that's a super humble approach. That's awesome, Christy.
Yeah, so I know we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to dive into some actual sales stuff. So you said as somebody walks into the community and they have that feeling of, you know, this is a no-brainer, this is what it is. What are you actually teaching? Is it you're teaching your sales team to do certain things? Is it the culture in general, you know, the front desk person? What is it exactly that you guys are teaching specifically that would stand out differently from other places when someone walks in to your community?
Okay, so all of the above, but
Gotcha.
of course we have great concierge training, and really hire our best salespeople as concierge team members. But if we know you're coming, we have a welcome sign with your name on it, beautifully designed right at the front desk, framed. We make sure that you are just feeling like you are expected. Even if you're walking in for the first time, we don't know you're coming in. Our goal is to make you feel like we've been expecting you. A couple other things I did not mention. I've worked for Holland America Line. So I've worked on cruise ships, and I've worked for Disney Channel and Disneyland. So many moons ago, that was in my very early 20s though. And so this idea of this hospitality that oozes out of every single thing is part of our process too. And so we want every single person to feel like they're expected, even if they're not. Warmly welcomed, a friendly face, a smile. We even have buttons that our team members wear that says, trust me, I'm smiling. Because, we're all wearing masks, you can't tell. But hopefully they can tell through the eyes. But truly, we should be prepared for someone new to walk in our community every single day. Because that's how Disney did it. It's going to be someone's first time at Disneyland every day. What's that experience like? It should be magical. And that's the same thing that we train our team on, is creating that magic.
That's so great. I'm always like, anybody that's listening to this that knows me, we're in Atlanta, so very Chick-fil-A oriented.
Ooh, yeah.
Anybody that knows me, I talk literally all about Chick-fil-A culture, but Disney is known for that as well. And I've noticed that the first time that I came was like, they greeted you, they were excited. It's almost like you're not being reactive, you're being proactive to it and assuming that they're gonna have questions. It's a big a part. So that's cool that you're incorporating that. And I really love the fact that you just said some of our best salespeople are in the first impressions, because I don't think that that's necessarily the approach that most people will take. I think maybe people are just trying to kind of fill a seat, if you will.
Yep.
Who's that first person that you're talking to, and then who's the last person that you're talking to?
Yep. It's that one person, and they can make or break a first impression or a lasting impression.
I couldn't agree more. I think if I could wave a magic wand and say that there's one thing that we really should focus on as an industry as a whole, from my experience, would be the concierge and the initial capturing the incoming phone call and being able to give our customers the right information and book a tour right then and there. And then when they do come in a tour, that first impression, I think that's where we have one of the most, like, where we could actually step up as a industry as a whole. Your thoughts on that? And then if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the industry, or that you see something in the future that you see where the industry is going, that you want to touch on, as far as, capturing customer leads, or, just what you think the future is of going to getting new customers.
Ooh, that's a loaded question too. Okay, so yeah, the concierge, 100% critical for success. If you have, a very unhappy person at the front desk welcoming people or saying goodbye to people, that's really going to impact your bottom line. It just is. So you got to have your friendliest, happiest person that just is the sunshine, pure sunshine.
Yeah.
Okay, where I see the industry going, I hope to be an integral part of it, truly.
You will be. I know that for a fact.
Okay, I see, it's cool because I see a lot of innovators that are entering the space and wanting to impact it in a positive way. So that excites me. Like we get to be a part of like changing this industry for the better. That is so stinking cool. I see it morphing into very similar to Holland America or Disney or Ritz-Carlton, into more of a hospitality feel. And yes, I think care is still going to be a huge part of it, but I think it will morph into more of a hospitality model. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I'm betting on. And so I'm trying to do my best to learn and grow in what does hospitality look like? How do you train your line staff to be super bought into great customer service and hospitality? Like I'm actively seeking out ways because I want to be a part of that change.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And then last question, because we're 2 minutes and I want to respect your time here, but the rumor mill has it. So I have on good sources that you are a huge Tom Brady fan.
Oh, yes, I am.
So Tom Brady walks up to you and says, I want to work in senior living, or I don't even know how to ask this question, but I want to work at MBK. Where do you feel like he would be best suited? And what type of things would he bring to the industry that we're not currently doing right now?
Oh my gosh.
I just asked maybe the worst question possible, but I just felt like I had to ask that.
Okay, we would make a position for him.
He would be like Chief Tom Brady officer.
No, just Chief Goat. Chief Goat.
There you go.
So as Chief Goat, he has this crazy ability. Well, number one, he works harder than anyone out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like just seeing him be himself, like would make everyone else want to be better. I don't know. He would be chief motivating goat, and he would be in charge of making sure everything happened at full capacity.
I love it.
Be like the ultimate culture changer. He demands excellence, I think, is what he would do at any company, just like you see him do football teams.
All the time.
I try to be a little bit like him. I mean, we absolutely do demand excellence at MBK. I mean, make no mistake, we have fun, we celebrate everything, but you gotta strive for excellence in order for that to happen. And so, yeah, make no mistake, I look at Tom Brady as a big unofficial mentor of me.
For sure.
I love it. I knew we'd get a good answer out of that. And so I'm glad I actually asked you.
So call me Tom. I have a position for you when you're ready to retire.
I'll tag him in LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll respond.
Chief Goat is waiting for you.
Well, Christy, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Real quickly, if you could just say, where people can reach you, if you want people to go through MBK or through LinkedIn and whatever, for if people want to reach out to you and ask you questions, really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today and giving your insight. It's been absolutely amazing. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. So people can reach me, obviously on LinkedIn, just search my name, but I believe it's linkedin.com/ChristyVDW. Yeah. My email address is my entire name, Christy Van Der Westhuizen @mbk.com. And then my phone number is 949-242-1413. So you can reach me there.
And our phone number.
Awesome.
That's amazing. Not every VP of sales will do that. So that's amazing. Thank you.
Seriously. I mean, if people have questions, I'm happy. I feel like we as an industry can rise together. Yes, it's a competitive landscape, but I do believe in sharing best practices. So if anyone has questions on anything I talked about, I'm happy to share.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We will we'll put all of the notes and everything in the show notes section of the podcast. And I don't know, like, subscribe, do whatever you do with audio podcasts. But Christy, thank you so much. We will we'll conclude, but thank you for listening to our second 100 Club podcast.
Thanks, guys.